Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Marketist podcast. My name is Imran Nadir, and I am the founder of Marketist. Today on our podcast, I'm joined by Jack Hepp, the founder of Industrious Marketing, a boutique Google Ads agency focused on helping local, commercial, and industrial service businesses generate leads and grow through paid search. Jack has been working in digital marketing since 2020, 2015. That has been like over a decade and has managed campaigns across wide range of industries from local service businesses to e-commerce brands. And over the years, he has built a reputation for practical, no nonsense PPC strategies, transparent client relationships, and helping businesses navigate consistently changing world of Google Ads. Recently, Jack has been speaking at industry events like SMX Advanced and sharing his insights on the future of PPC, automation, AI, and what it takes to succeed as a marketer in 2026 and beyond. Jack, thank you so much for taking time out, and it's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. Jack, for the people who are discovering you from this podcast, like first time, what are you doing? What is industrial marketing and what problem are you solving for businesses today?
Yeah. Yeah, so like you said, I focus mainly on Google Ads, industrious marketing. We work with a variety of service businesses from kind of home service businesses to B2B businesses. That's kind of really the area where we specialize in and work with those types of businesses. So we get a lot of really good industry knowledge, that we can use and share among clients and those sorts of things. Obviously at this point in time, like we're kind of at a place where things are changing quickly with AI and everything like that. So, what one of our big focuses with clients is just figuring out like how do we navigate all these changes? How do we navigate what's shifting in Google, shifting trends and how people search and those sorts of things. So that's kind of a thing, an area where we add a lot of value for people.
Wonderful. So, how did you end up having like industrious marketing? What was the thought behind this? What was this? What is the story behind it?
Sure. Yeah, it's probably kind of a unique one. I always wanted to work for myself. So that was always a goal that I had out there. But I worked for a couple different marketing agencies for a while, and then went and worked for a specialty PPC agency for a bit. And then it was just me and the owner of that agency, and she ultimately got some other opportunities that she wanted to pursue, and decided to kind of step back from her agency and stuff like that. And so she actually came to me and said like, "Hey, we're not going to have, yeah, I'm going to kind of wind this down. But I want to know if you'd like to go out on your own. And if you would, would you like to take some of the clients you've been working with and work with them and stuff?" And, my knee jerk reaction was, "Oh my gosh, I have to get a job." But after I thought about it for a little bit, I was like, "Oh wait, this is really a wonderful opportunity." And so I was able to take some of those clients that I'd had, and go out on my own. And it was obviously an awesome boost to getting started on your own, and then kind of built it from there.
Wonderful. You have great story, honestly. Well, you started digital marketing around 2025 when I was like playing football in my university. That's great experience you have. So you must have seen a lot of updates in Google Ads industry. It has like evolved dramatically since then, like in since 2015. So what has been the biggest lesson from your journey that still shapes how you approach PPC today?
Yeah, I will say, like, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle, because there's people that I feel the exact same way as you do. Like they started when I was in high school and stuff like that. So,
Wonderful.
but I have, like, things have changed a lot. So when I kind of first got in the industry, like, keyword match types were very different. There was expanded text ads, not responsive search ads. PMAX didn't exist, AI Max didn't exist, demand gen didn't exist. There's
Hmm.
been a
Hmm.
significant amount of change, and so that's those are kind of the biggest things. I mean, obviously, pushing heavily into automation has been, a big change. Even early in my career, automation was kind of starting to flow in, but the last several years, it has really pushed that way. So that's probably the biggest change is going from a period where we had much more control over how things were showing and what we were doing, to, now that control kind of relies with Google for, and they have a lot more data and a lot more signals. Like, not saying that's a bad thing, but it's definitely a shift in how you manage things and the way you look at advertising.
All right. Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you. Well, I have this quick question that why did you focus on Google Ads only for the last like whole decade? Why didn't you focus on like becoming a full service agency? Like there are so many agencies, they provide website, SEO, meta ads, and all that, and you focused only on Google Ads. What was the core reason behind it?
Sure. So early on, I actually worked across a variety of different digital marketing things. I did Google ads, and then I also had, some exposure to some social ads and even, like SEO and email marketing, those sorts of things. And part of it, I just really liked Google ads. And it was, an area I liked spending most of my time. And so I really kind of started just to shift towards only doing that over time. To be honest, I still manage a little bit of paid social and stuff like that now and then. It's just not kind of a focus of what I do. But I liked, Google kind of sits at this really interesting place where people are telling you exactly what they want, and they're telling you they want it right now. And that's, I think Google's really unique in its ability to target people in that way. And that could shift now with you know AI and chat services and those sorts of things. But that was really kind of, I think, what I found the best, like the most unique about Google. And then it got to a point where like it was just extremely difficult to try to keep up with how every different digital marketing channel was changing. And so, I liked Google, and I kind of thought, hey, this is where I want to focus. And if I focus on Google ads, it's going to be much easier for me to keep up with what's changing and what are the best practices and how do we test and learn and do the best that we can in Google, um, versus, like I'm kind of good at all these different channels, or I'm really good at this one channel. And so that was really what kind of led me just to focus in on that from there.
Well, a lot of people like myself, we started from freelancing. Then onwards, today we have like I personally have I run an agency that is digital marketing and also Google Ads focused. But here's this quick question: you focus on one industry, right? You are still focusing on one industry. How did you not get confused and focus on that one industry? Because a lot of people, like even myself, whenever we see that noise, we jump into another industry. When we see, okay, this is working, let's jump into that, let's jump into that. So what would you tell me or all the people who are watching right now, because most of the people are agency owners and freelancer, what would you tell them that, okay, you should definitely focus on one industry rather than jumping into each every other time?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I have even struggled with at times. And I put out there that I'm focused on this industry, and that's really where the majority of what I do is. But every once in a while, we dabble into other things. I think the thing that I would say is it becomes much easier to really build an understanding and a process when you're focused in on one specific place. E-commerce is extremely different than lead gen. Lead gen for home services is very different than lead gen for, a B2B SaaS company. There's different ways in which you're targeting people, different strategies that work. And so it can be hard when you're jumping around all these different things to kind of continue to understand, like, hey, what's working and where should I be? And so that was kind of part of why I focused in on it. It also, I think, especially for marketers trying to promote themselves, it's much easier. Like, if you just put yourself out there as like, hey, we do Google ads and we're really good at it, and we do it for anybody and everybody. Well, so does everybody else says that too, right? um,
Hmm.
and so I think the advice that I got early on, and something that I think works, is if you're focused in one area, you can say like, hey, we're really good at this thing. And so your audience sees that and they're like, hey, I do that. And this person's really good at this. And so it kind of leads to this like natural um connection, versus like saying like, hey, we're good at everything, we can do anything and everything. You're saying like, hey, I'm really good at the exact thing that you do. And so it helps you kind of pull in those ideal clients and pull in those people that you want to work with, and be really good for them. And it doesn't mean that other leads won't come in and there's not other opportunities. Like, those things
Hmm.
still come in. I have e-commerce leads come in at times and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't exclude those things always, but it does let you focus really heavily and say like, hey, we're a super good fit for you because this is what we do.
Wonderful. Yeah, totally. I totally agree. That is, it is quite difficult, but yet you have managed, and a lot of people cannot manage that. Well, just walk me through, and everybody watching, in today, like today's, we are in June right now, like half of year has gone into the 26. What are the steps, like one by one step, for a Google Ads person to create an agency in 2026, which could work in the next whole decade? What would you suggest, like a agency building roadmap? What would that be? Like, can you take us through that journey from your own experience, whatever you are seeing in the industry and everything? How would you like take me to that journey, please?
Yeah, I think step one, be prepared for change. So like that's, obviously things are changing fast and furious at the moment, and to be honest, I don't know what the future of agencies look like. Personally, I think they'll still exist, and I think people will still want to work with them. The clients I work with don't necessarily, um, like part of why they like working with me is they like having somebody they can go to and say like, you do this. I don't even want to think about this. I have other things in my business to run. You're the
Mm,
expert. You do this, and so I think for if you want to go out on your own, one of the first things I tell people usually is do it on the side first and learn, if you're
okay.
able to. So I
Mhm.
started freelancing a little bit on the side early on before I went on my own, and it gives you kind of a cushion to learn all the intricacies that are out there. There's all kinds of there's tax things, there's legal things, there's business structure, there's how do you find clients and how do you service these clients when you're outside of the structure of where you've been working. And it's much easier to learn those things if you have a current job and have one or two clients on the side and you're learning those things as you go. You could certainly just go out on your own and learn those as you go, but it'd probably be a little bit rougher of a learning curve. So that would be probably the first thing is, do that. From there, I think it's really critical to stay to just be flexible and be prepared to kind of like make your agency fit who your clients are. And I think that that's going to continue to be really important going forward. Like I said, I don't know, 5 years ago, I might have had a really different answer on how I think an agency should look, because there was kind of a way that it was done. And I think that that's shifting heavily now. Um, you know, when I first went out on my own, like we were still really doing a lot of the work ourselves versus now, things are heavily automated and you're seeing a lot less time spent in the platform and more time spent elsewhere. So you're going to have to just determine how your agency provides value. And that may start to be more outside of just setting up campaigns and running campaigns. So, you know,
Mm,
trying to figure out like how are you going to structure yourself and how are you going to provide the most value to people. And again, that kind of goes back to like the picking your niche and your audience that you are going for. Like, if you have a specific area of focus, you're going to be more able to kind of lean into that area and figure out how best you can provide value to those types of customers, regardless of how things shift,
mm.
from there.
Yeah, I believe in this one thing, as you said, that rather than focusing on just the platforms like Google Ads or dashboards, you should focus on other things. So this is small theory I follow, 70-30 ratio. You have to focus 30% on Google Ads and 70% on the business side. Then you can survive in 2026, even beyond that. Other than that, there's no chance, because a lot of things, like as you mentioned before, that keywords we used to do like every bit of one by one keyword, now we don't do that. And previously we used to write each headline, now we don't do that. Right, previously we went through each okay, let's go reporting one by one. Okay, 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 it took like hours and days most of times. So now we just put the data, download the data and give it to the Claude or ChatGPT. They just give concise and good reporting, right, summarized, and even they can suggest better things beyond the things we think, like they with this one mind. So I totally understand. I would like to know one more thing about your clients, the people, the businesses you work with. What are those common problems people come to you for, like what, for business or for Google Ads or any other, like can you tell me like few common problems people are facing in your industry?
Yeah, I think in the kind of especially the home service lead gen world, there's people really struggle with generating qualified leads is probably one of the biggest things. And that a lot of times it comes down to the setup and it comes down to how you're tracking things. It's really typical in the industry, and really in the lead gen industry as a whole. To be honest, people are tracking really basic form fills. And the thing with Google is it has gotten very good at getting you more of what you ask for. And so
Mm,
if you ask for form fills, it's going to get you a lot of form fills, but that doesn't mean that those are actually good clients. And Google is going to find a way. Google is going to get you the most of what it can, and that may mean that it's finding the lowest common denominator, and that could be spam leads or poor lead tire kickers, those sorts of things. And so I think one of the biggest challenges that and it's something that we're continuing to work on, and I think is only going to get more and more critical as we go, is how do we pass back the best possible information to Google? And there's all kinds of challenges in lead gen, from trying to connect CRMs to the lack of CRMs to people just not having good internal systems for reporting back qualities of leads and those sorts of things. And so I think it's a challenge that has existed in lead gen for a long time, and I think it's one that has become immensely more critical where we're at now. And then I think another thing that we commonly see is in especially kind of the home services lead gen. There's a lot of companies who are um, they're very focused on the volume of clients they have and not necessarily the results that they drive for them. And so I
mm,
get clients frequently that come in, they say, we've done this, we've tried this, it's not working. Google ads has been terrible for us, and things like that. And unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of people in kind of the local business area and home service area that they're going to sell you everything that they can sell you, and then whether they actually deliver those results or not is a totally different piece of that
mm.
equation. And so I think that that's kind of a challenge. Sometimes we have to talk people back into this, into Google, and say like, hey, just because that was the experience before, that doesn't necessarily mean that's true. Like, I think Google can be really good for you. So those are a couple really common issues we see. And it's, and I don't think they're going to change.
So my next question would be related to that. If somebody who is like, I serve contractors in USA and other countries, right? So my core focus is on that. Like you have industry focus, like we have focused on contractors only. Could be roofing contractors, could be others, right? So what would you do if they come to you? Would you go with search campaign first, or because a lot of people go with local search ads as well? What would you prefer, and how would you plan your campaigns to get the maximum out of it? Like, consider it that okay, they have like not this much budget, not this much budget, but they have like mediocre budget, like good budgets, you can say, right? What would you do in that, and how would your approach be for those such clients?
Yeah. My gold standard in Google Ads is still search campaigns. And that is pretty much what I will start any and every account with, outside of some exceptions. There may be some, really small budgets or really small businesses or things like that could be different. We've worked with, like local restaurants or local retail. And
Mhm.
sometimes we may look at a PMAX setup and some of those kind of things. But even then, typically we will try to do like a search campaign first and then layer in those pieces. I think that, like I said, the power of Google is people are telling you exactly what they want, and you are able to put an ad in front of them that says we can give you this, and search does that better than anything else inside of Google. And so search campaigns are the foundation of every account we have for the most part, and I think will continue to be the foundation of all those accounts, because that is the biggest value that Google has over any other type of advertising platform. You get to put your answer directly in front of those people, and obviously PMAX can do some of those things as well, like it can get into search and that kind of stuff too. But there's a lot of extra things, and most other campaign types in Google require a ton of data for their systems to learn who's this person, how do I interact with them, and the kind of accounts you describe, like whether it's new accounts or smaller budgets or limited in some way. That's exactly what they don't have. They don't have the data to tell those systems this is who we want, and so that's where people will see a lot of struggles. The power of search campaigns is you're able to tell Google with keywords, here's at least the very starting point of who we know that we want to be in front of. We know what their intent is, we know what they're searching for, and you give Google a huge head start there. Then you still need data and stuff like that to make smart bidding work and those sorts of things, but it's still very critical in that way.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I totally got your point that search is still the king, right, in Google Ads. So, how would you explain? Because recently we just started testing Search Max in search campaigns, right? Have you tried that? And what were the results for that? And how do you approach that? And what exactly does it do? Like, can you tell me? Because it is in search. Why it is called Search Max AI in search?
Yeah. So AI Max is Google's newest piece, and it's built in. It's not its own standalone thing. It's built into search campaigns. We've experimented with it some. We'll continue to experiment with it. With any new launch in Google, it takes time for it to get good, and AI Max is still really early in that. And so, I don't think it's as good as it'll be. I think it's gotten better than where it was when it first launched. Basically what AI Max does is it allows Google to go beyond kind of like the constraints of your search campaign into other areas. So it can expand URLs into different URLs. And so instead of using the URL you set in your ad, it can go use additional URLs on your website and pull those in, similar to like a DSA campaign, a dynamic search ad campaign would do. And it can create uh, automatically created assets. So it uses AI to kind of match, like the ad headlines and descriptions to,
Hmm.
like the landing page and that sort of thing. Again, that's similar to what a dynamic search ad campaign would do. Just more advanced, a little more control on Google's end as far as like what all they're doing. And then kind of the final main piece is that it can expand your match types. So it will go beyond your keywords to find additional conversion volume, um, and really similar to like the way that a broad match keyword would do would do that. So those are kind of like the three main features. There's a few other things in those as well. So we experiment with them with clients. The thing that I think that we've found, and when I've talked to other people in the industry, like it's AI Max really becomes beneficial when you have, when your campaign is already sort of getting as much as it can get in the way that you're set up, and then you can use AI Max to expand beyond those things, and maybe Google can find additional volume that your keywords are missing, or that you didn't think of, or match things in a different way. It can expand into AI overviews and some of Google's AI placements and those sorts of things. So depending on the client, like if the campaign is limited by budgets, or it's limited in some other way, AMAX probably isn't going to really provide a ton of benefit, because you could essentially expand the campaign by adding more keywords or growing your
Hmm.
budget, to capture more share of what you already have. Now if your campaign is maxing all those things out, then AMX can kind of go beyond the constraints of that, and find additional things. And so that's probably one of the better use cases for it right now. Um, and that was similar to what we saw with dynamic search ads. And then, AI Max is going to replace those later this year anyways. So, but that's really probably, I wouldn't look at using AI Max until I'm like pretty confident our search campaigns are doing as much as we think that they can do.
Wonderful. All right, so I'm not going to bore you with Google Ads questions, right? Right. I have two more questions relevant to that technical knowledge of Google Ads. So, how does PMAX work? What I have seen, you can correct me if I'm wrong. What I have seen is 95 to 97% results in PMAX come from searches, right? What people do search, like the search campaigns in PMAX. How would you see it, and what is the benefit of PMAX? I don't understand. It's just the like bleeding money on PMAX, but a lot of people say that okay, PMAX is good. A lot of people say that it is great, and we don't have to do a bunch of the things. How do you see that?
Yeah. I think the first thing I say is like, I think PMAX early on, and I think continues to be a much better campaign for e-commerce. That doesn't mean that it can't provide value for lead gen. I think it can, and we have PMAX campaigns in the lead gen realm. But I think that it's the part of the value with PMAX is the shopping placements and search placements and those sorts of things. And so I think it provides a lot more value for e-commerce than a lot of times what you'll see with lead gen.
Hmm.
Again, and I think some of this, like I think this is maybe an answer that Google's still trying to figure out, like where exactly does Performance Max fit into all this stuff, and how is that evolving right now as they change things. I think Performance Max again is one of those things that it gives you an opportunity to get additional volume beyond what you're already getting. So again, like I'm in a lead gen account, I'm not launching Performance Max until my search campaigns are maxed out. Like I'm confident that my search campaigns are getting as much as we can get from them, and there's no obvious way for us to expand volume beyond that. Then Performance Max comes in. So really basically Performance Max is, can serve across all of Google's placements, and it can, it's heavily automated. It's very, AI focused, machine learning focused, whatever you want to say, but it goes way beyond kind of the traditional search. And so you will see a lot of times in Performance Max, it's really heavily weighted towards shopping or search, and then may serve in some other places as well. So that's, I think, kind of where Performance Max can provide value in lead gen is like your search campaigns are maxed out and you're looking for more volume. It can do things, it can go, it does some types of remarketing, like it will take a lot of your audience data and go after those types of people. It may get you into some additional channels where it could find some things and maybe build some awareness. I think there's better ways to target upper funnel type stuff, but Performance Max provides some of that. um, but that's probably, similar, and that's where I think things are kind of weird with AI Max and stuff like that now. Like, should you go to AI Max to expand your volume, or should you use Performance Max to expand your volume? And like, why use one over the other? And I think that those are kind of things that they're gonna have to evolve as all these tools change.
All right. So my next question is related to AI. Recently in Google Marketing Live (GML), Google announced e-commerce agents, right? Agentic e-commerce, right? They have introduced, and it will be like a user just gives the prompt or gives the order that okay, I need this, and the agent will just find the best product. So I believe that we'll now be running or creating campaigns for AI agents first rather than human first. How do you see that?
I think it's a really good question, and I think it's something we're going to learn as we go. My personal opinion is that I'm a little bit skeptical of how heavily people are going to lean into letting agents buy for them. I could be totally wrong. Maybe people really like it, and that becomes a big use. So I think that part of it is we'll have to see like how do the actual humans react to these things, and do they actually use them? Google's
Hmm.
had all sorts of products they've built that they thought people would use, and they didn't, and that's just how things work. So that would be, I think my first thing is like, we have to wait and see how human behavior changes with these things, and what do they do. So then, and we very much could see a period where like people are very heavily are using agentic um, tools to purchase things and stuff like that. And I think if we get to a point where that becomes really common, like um, there will be some level of like, are you building this for for the AI, or are you building it for the human? But I think what happens in that place is like, how does the AI decide what to buy for you, right? And that's going to be a really critical piece of how this works. And AI is very focused on logic, and so logically, if something's cheaper, or something provides better value, like that's what it's going to go to. So like, I think you're going to find like, are we building things in ways that it's like that we're just competing on price, or are you going to get into a place where you're trying to say like, you want people to ask it to buy things by name? Well, then branding becomes incredibly important, and those sorts of
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
So I think that is an excellent question, and I wish I had a really good answer for it, and I don't. And I think it's something we're just gonna
Yeah, no
have
problem.
to
Yeah.
continue to monitor and evolve. So
We are all learning, right? So I was just talking to the other guy the other day that okay, it's not just me who's scared, it's everybody who's scared, right? Not just scared, worried, and they're just planning. Okay, I planned this thing today and something changed tomorrow, my plan just wasted. I planned this thing today, something changed, it wasted. So like that, we are facing this. So I totally understand. So as an agency owner, this question I hear a lot of people ask me this question, and you are the right person to ask. How are you using AI in Google Ads. And a lot of we post we see on LinkedIn that, okay, use this, and we have replaced this thing in Google Ads using these prompts, using this agentic AI. Claude did that. Claude just vanished Google Ads. Claude just ate Google Ads. So how do you use that in your agency, like in real time, so that people who are confused like me, or there are many other people who may be watching this, confused, okay, how actually people are using AI in their workflow in specifically Google Ads?
Yeah. um, so I I am not, I wouldn't say I'm not an early adopter, but like I'm integrating AI into what we do all the time. But I'm not like somebody who's just going to run blindly into all this stuff and do every new thing that you see on LinkedIn. I think half of the stuff you see on LinkedIn, maybe more than half, um, is hyperbolic. I'm going to get lots of views on LinkedIn, and it's not. If you dig
Mhm.
into it, I don't think that that's really what people are doing. um, we we haven't connected Google Ads directly into any sort of AI, like Claude or Gemini or anything like that, and it's not something I suspect we'll do in the near future. Um, I have no immediate plans for it to be making actual changes for me in any of these kind of accounts. I think the thing that I think about a lot is like where does the liability lie in these things, and where, like, who's ultimately accountable when something goes wrong? Like, even if the
Mhm.
AI is perfect 99% of the time, what about that 1% of the time? Like, who's ultimately accountable for whatever issue it is? It decides
Exactly.
that it needs to spend 10 times the budget one day, and you blow through your client's budget, or it decides this account doesn't make sense and it shuts everything down, whatever it is. Like, like whatever those errors are, like ultimately the accountability falls to me. It's not like the AI tools in their terms of conditions say it's not their thing. And the client's going to look to you and say, like, you know you use this tool, this is what happened. So all of our AI uses right now are outside of that to kind of help save time. So use it a lot in creative generation. We'll use it in some ways for keyword research. I think it's really bad at keyword research. It finds lots of search terms that have no actual volume. Like, they sound good, but you put them in the account and they're not actually going to do anything. So like we'll use it in some ways for that. Use it in ways that are organizational or analytical. So like maybe we pull data out of it and use it to, like, hey, help us find trends in these search terms that like it's not easy for us to see. But everything that we're doing with it is pulling data from the campaigns and then giving it to, so there's that human kind of in the middle of it, to just try to protect against any edge cases of like things going horribly wrong. So I think that it's something you have to lean into and you have to use because everybody else is going to as well. But I'm not gonna like just like automate my entire agency and connect it and have fun and let it go.
All right. Thank you so much for explaining that thing, because it is a confusion. A lot of people may have find a solution. Okay. My next question would be that, is an agency of Google Ads, how how is your growth like look like? I mean, how do you generate leads for yourself? How are you dependent on Google Ads? Are you dependent on SEO? Are you doing like content marketing or influencer marketing? What exactly are you doing, and how anybody who is watching could get benefit out of it, whatever you are doing?
Yeah. Um, so definitely like word of mouth and referrals have been a big piece of what we've done, and I think that most people will tell you that that's a piece of it. So ideally you want clients that are so happy with you they're telling everybody else to talk to you too, and I think that those are the best clients typically that come in.
Hmm,
Like,
hmm.
they already know you, they have a level of trust with you because somebody they trust says that you're good. And so that's so kind of building those relationships and networking and those sorts of things help. Like, I spend a lot of time networking with other people in the industry, or in industries I want to be involved with, because you're just able to build trust in a way that makes people look to you for a referral. So I think that those are probably our strongest areas. Definitely something that I've started leaning into more this year, last year, and into this year, is trying to do more like content marketing stuff. So, joining podcasts or writing blog posts. I've started trying to post videos on YouTube, post a lot on LinkedIn, those sorts of things, because they're just ways for people to find you. And I think that those are important. I think that those are, they're slow things. They don't necessarily like turn into clients today or tomorrow, but I think you're able to kind of build your reputation, and over time people will find you and think about you when they need help and stuff like that. So those are probably the biggest pieces. We mess around with paid ads once in a while for the agency. I think it's probably kind of an oxymoron, but I think paid advertising for agencies is extremely difficult. And I know of agencies that have had success with it. I know of a lot of others that don't mess with it at all. It can be crazy expensive. Lead quality can be a challenge, and those sorts of things. So, it's something that you can explore and play around with and those sorts of things. But, uh, go into it with the right expectations. Like, don't think you're going to turn on Facebook ads and have 10 qualified leads tomorrow. Um, and I've experimented with all kinds of things. I tried cold email at one point in time and had no luck with it. I tried like LinkedIn outreach that didn't really do well. But I know other people that have had success with things. So I think it's a lot of trial and error, and like what works for you, works for the type of clients you're going after. And unfortunately, like you're gonna have to experiment. It's gonna cost some money, and there's gonna be some failures. But that's, I would say, like that's the same thing we're asking clients to do when they trust us to run ads for them, and they can experience the exact same sort of thing. So it's just, I think, part of the advertising world.
Exactly. Yeah, referral is the strongest marketing of any business. I totally understand. So my next question would be like, how is your team's structure? Are they completely like 100% remote? Are you having like on-site team, or how is your structure?
Yeah, so it's me and contractors at the
Yeah.
moment. So everybody's remote, at some point in time, like if we grow enough, we'll probably hire people as well, and then we'll be fully remote if we do that. I think that it's the benefits of remote work are you can go find talent wherever they are. I live in a pretty small area, and there's not a ton of people that live here that are experiencing Google Ads and stuff like that. So that's the benefit is you can go find talent wherever it is and use them.
So if anybody wants to join industrious marketing, how do you hire? Like how do they reach out to you?
I mean, you could probably send me a form request or something through the website. I'm not hiring at the moment, but usually I kind of like, I, I think the best thing would be, get to network with me and get to know me. And then when I'm at a point, because I usually kind of go to my network first when I'm looking for help on things. And so it helps to kind of, if you already know somebody and have an idea of who they are, I think that's in my career, that's the biggest thing that helped me find jobs and stuff like that is I just networked and knew people, and when opportunities arise, they thought of me.
Yeah, it's good actually. You find the right people in your network because you don't have to interview them a lot, and people who refer, they are responsible enough that they refer good people only because they have their own brand on stake, that they refer the good people. So okay, Jack does not feel like okay what he has referred, so like that. So people refer good people always. Totally. So my I know that you are a busy man and we have a time limit. So I'll ask few more questions, right? So first, is that for all the people who are watching and want to learn Google Ads and jump into Google Ads, what would you suggest the roadmap to learn Google Ads today?
um I would say, you know I think one of the biggest things is getting hands-on experience in some way is extremely valuable. And so getting into the platform and playing with it is ideal.
Hmm.
There's tons of great trainings that exist out there. I will specifically shout out Jill Saskin Gales. Has a really wonderful like beginner intro Google Ads um, thing that I think that people could check out. There's tons of people posting all sorts of stuff on YouTube that you can watch for free. There's the PPC chat community that exists. There's, I think, Slack and Discord are maybe two areas where you can get into those communities. You'll find people on LinkedIn and stuff that are in them. People are always talking about things. There's tons of information shared there, and you might be able to find like opportunities to work for somebody. And so I think Um, in an ideal world, I think one of the best things would be to find a way to run some Google ads yourself and figure it out. And maybe if you have your own business or you have a friend that you want to like, hey, like let's experiment with this. You'll learn a lot through trial and error, and I think that is something that's super beneficial. I'd probably get a little bit of a baseline of what you're doing and what's going on, but that's definitely a huge benefit as well. So.
Wonderful. So, my second last question is, how is industrial marketing planning next 5 years? Knowing that AI is like it is crazy making shifts like on daily basis, right? So how do you see yourself next 5 years? What is on your mind? What are you planning, and what exactly are you talking to the team, or even not in the team, just room of your own self? Okay, let's do that. Let's see how this goes and all that.
Yeah, so something that is on my mind a lot. I think it it's the short version is like how are we going to provide value to clients that's honestly outside of the platform. I think we're not going to go backwards where all of a sudden like we're doing way more inside of Google Ads. It's going to continue to shift towards we're doing less and less inside the platform. And so where do we provide value to clients, and what does that look like? And so some of those things are going to become very strategic type questions. We have the right strategy, we know the structure, we know the things that are going to work to save you some of that trial and error because we've done it, right? We've learned, and we know. So that's, I think, we're going to probably continue to shift more towards a strategy offering, and some of those kind of things. I think data is going to be ever more important, and like how do we feed the right information to Google so that it knows how to find the right people. So because I think one of the biggest differentiators, like let's say we lost all control into Google tomorrow, and like how would we stand out and be different from everybody else? And one of those things is going to be like, what is the quality of data that we're giving to Google, and how well are we teaching and training it to go find the people that we need? And I think that that's going to become an extremely critical piece, and maybe one of the most important pieces of how you do things. So that's a big piece of those are things that I'm actively trying to like think on and work on, like how do we work with clients to provide this type of quality data that we need to make campaigns work. And I think a third piece is like how do businesses stand out from each other in a world where everybody has the same tools and everybody has the same access to knowledge and controls and stuff like that. And I think some of that goes back to like old school marketing. Like when everybody could show up on the same billboards, you had to do something to stand out on those billboards, right? And so
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that paid media is going to increasingly move to something more similar to that, where like we have to do something that makes us stand out. And those are like branding, traditional marketing type questions. But I think that those could become part of an offering as well. Like that's we're going to help you figure out ways to stand out, from everybody else doing the exact same sort of thing.
Wonderfully explained. Well, my last question would be, what would be based on your all years of experience? Like, it is not related to Google Ads. It's just a random or the advice you follow somebody has given you, or you would give the same advice or any different to anybody who is watching, could change their life or way of thinking or anything. Any advice would work.
Any advice at all?
Yeah, which is valuable, of course.
um, I think uh, don't don't lose the in-person side of things. Whether it's digital marketing or real life or whatever it is, I think that the in-person, the networking, the building connections, the getting to know things, I think is going to be immensely valuable in any part of life. And so, we talk a lot about like learning how machines work and spending time on all these sorts of things and stuff like that. But some of the best things I've learned and some of the greatest ideas I've had to come from going to conferences or meeting with people, getting on webinars, like doing things where you're interacting with other real people, and that goes into referrals, whether it's for jobs or for clients, and it goes into learning, and it goes into all these different sorts of things. So in you know everywhere you look, there's AI advice and how to use this tool and how to do this tech thing and how to automate all this sorts of stuff. But like you can't automate the fact that we're humans
Everything.
and we build relationships and stuff like that. And so I think that above all, like focus on those relationships and connecting with people. And I think that it'll provide a huge amount of benefit from your career to real life.
Well, I know it was the last question. Another question just popped up. If you allow me, I can ask.
Sure.
Okay, so how do you see AI ads, specifically ChatGPT, and what if tomorrow Claude also announce ads in Claude as well? How do you see that? Have you experienced it or have you explored it? Because recently I explored it myself. I recorded a video as well, but it does not work here in Pakistan. That's why I cannot use that. It is only I guess in four countries: USA, Canada, and Australia and New Zealand. So have you started working on it or explore options? How do you see that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm running them for myself right now, for my own
Oh,
agency.
wonderful.
Like I said, one of the best ways to learn this stuff is to do it. And so
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, I'm just going to run ads for myself and we'll see what happens. I have some clients that have wanted to experiment with it, and we're messing around with that too. At the moment, it's early and it's extremely limited and that sort of thing. And so, um, it's something like if you have test budget that you want to throw at something, like go for it. But yeah, is it going to be like a major uplift? I don't know.
So
So
what?
go ahead.
Yeah, what are the results like? I mean, if you're testing, what are the results like? Are they like quite interesting, like in Google Ads, or are they just like like that?
Yeah, they're kind of heh. There's convert like you can't optimize towards conversions really yet. The tracking ability is super limited. The ability to like customize things. You get one headline, one description, and an image.
Yes, yes,
So like they're super limited in what you can do. I will say like CPCs have been crazy cheap compared to Google,
of course.
which I think is interesting. So like you might be able to kind of like find some good quality traffic out of that kind of stuff. I haven't tied it to a lead for myself yet. Some
Because
clients have, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
because also they don't have that much traffic, like crazy traffic, like Google has. A lot of people ask me that, okay, what if Google Ads die? I said that I tell them that till Google is there, it's not dying because Google is by default search engine in billions of mobile phones, in billions of even Google Chromes, like right, even iPhones Safari. By default, it is Google search. Google pays like billions of rupees to Apple just to stay relevant by default search engine. So I don't think till Google is there, it's not dying. And Google is evolving as behavior of human being. They are not evolving technically. They are not
Mm,
focusing on technology first. They are evolving as a human first, like how humans are thinking, how humans behave, how human interact with AI. So that's what I think, right? So that is the reason it is not giving good results. But that that is I felt excited because you're the first person I know that that who is running ChatGPT ads, and that's wonderful to know. Honestly, that's why I got
yeah,
excited.
yeah. It's I will say like historically, like if you got into Google ads early or Facebook ads early or whatever it is, like you tend to find like a much better opportunity than you will later, just by
Hmm.
going in early. So it's like I said, if you have the budget and you want to play with it, like go for it. And I think it's worth testing. But I agree, it's not going to be a huge impact on Google in the near term. And a lot of these things are additive and not necessarily like it's not taking away from something else. It's just an additional piece on top of it.
Hmm.
So that's I think something to keep in mind as well. Like it's an additional thing that people do. It's an additional place that people spend time, and so it doesn't mean like they're stealing search traffic from Google. People just are their behavior shifting, and they're spending more time there. So
Another perspective is that maybe you have heard in your network as well that they are facing challenges with their budgets. ChatGPT, even Claude, they are heavily dependent on investments. Like Google does not have that problem by default. They are very rich people, so they will defeat them at that point as well, right? All right. Thank you so much, Jack. It has been like amazing and fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences, insights, and all those practical advice with our audience, myself as well. So until next time, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Well, for the people who are watching, I will definitely share all the links of socials of Jack in the description. You definitely go connect with him and tell him exactly that okay, you got connected with him by reference of Imran Nadir. Yeah, so thank you so much. Have see you.